Have you ever been in a conversation where you feel really good because you understand every single word, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, you have absolutely no idea what the people are talking about? You are smiling and nodding, but inside your head, you are completely lost, trying to figure out how you got from talking about weekend plans to talking about the price of car tires. It is a terrible feeling, right? You start to think your English is not good enough, or maybe you missed a very important vocabulary word. But let me tell you a secret. Most of the time, your English is perfectly fine. What you missed was the bridge. You missed the topic transition. Welcome to English in Fluency. I am your host, Alex, and today we are going to fix this problem together. We are going to practice B1 English listening, but not in a boring textbook way. We are going to dive deep into how real people change the subject in everyday conversations. By the end of our time together today, you will never feel lost again when someone shifts the topic. You will learn to hear the invisible signs that tell you a new idea is coming. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let us start training your ears. Think about how your brain works when you listen to someone speak in your native language. You do not just listen to individual words. Your brain listens for groups of words, and it listens for the flow of ideas. When a person finishes talking about one thing and wants to start talking about something else, they have to build a little bridge. If they do not build that bridge, the conversation sounds crazy. Imagine someone says, "I love eating pizza, and my dog went to the vet yesterday." That sounds very strange. But if they say, "I love eating pizza, but speaking of things that go into mouths, my dog went to the vet yesterday because he ate a shoe." Now it makes sense. The bridge was the phrase speaking of things that go into mouths. In real life, people do not always make such obvious bridges. Sometimes the bridge is just one single word. Sometimes it is just a change in their voice. Today, we are going to look at all these different bridges so you can catch them easily. Let us start with the easiest type of topic transition to hear. These are the direct phrases. These are the words people use when they are not trying to hide the fact that they are changing the subject. They just want to move on to something else. I want you to imagine two friends, Sarah and Mark. They are sitting in a cafe. Sarah is talking about her terrible day at work. She is complaining about her boss. She is saying that her boss gave her too much work and that she is very tired. Mark is listening and nodding. Then Sarah takes a deep breath and says, "Anyway, enough about work. How is your sister doing? Let us stop right there." Did you hear the bridge? The bridge was the word anyway. When someone says anyway or anyhow, it is a giant green light. It means the old topic is closed. The door is locked. We are opening a new door to a new topic. If you are taking notes in your mind, write down the word anyway. It is your best friend in English conversations. People use it all the time to gracefully exit a boring or negative topic. But anyway is not the only phrase. There are so many phrases like this. People say, "By the way." By the way is very interesting because it usually introduces a completely random piece of information. Imagine Mark and Sarah are still talking. Mark says, "Your sister is doing great. She got a new job." And then Mark pauses and says, "Oh, by the way, I saw your neighbor walking a huge dog this morning. Did you hear it? By the way." Mark was not thinking about the neighbor. The thought just popped into his head, and he used "by the way" to drop it into the conversation. Another very common phrase is speaking of which. This one is a little trickier because it actually connects the old topic to the new topic. If Sarah says, "I need to buy a new jacket because it is getting cold," Mark might say, "Speaking of which, we need to turn on the heater in our house." The connection is the cold weather. Speaking of which means I am taking one small part of what you just said, and I am using it to jump to my own thought. It is a very smooth bridge. Other phrases you should listen for include "that reminds me," which is very similar to "speaking of which" or changing the subject completely, which people use when they are being funny or blunt, or on a completely different note, which is a bit more formal but still used in everyday speech. Now, I want to talk about a type of transition that catches a lot of English learners off guard, because it does not use any special phrases at all. I call this the question pivot. Sometimes people change the subject just by asking a question that points in a totally different direction. Let us go back to our friends in the cafe. Sarah is complaining about her boss again. She is saying that her boss never listens to her ideas. Mark could say, "Anyway, let's talk about something else." But real people are often a bit lazy with their words. Instead of using a transition phrase, Mark might just look at his watch and say, "What time are we supposed to meet David? Do you see what happened there?" There was no anyway. There was no, by the way. Mark just asked a question about a completely new topic. When you hear a sudden question that has nothing to do with the last 5 minutes of conversation, your brain needs to wake up. A sudden question is a very strong signal that the topic has just changed. You do not need to be confused. You just need to realize that the other person decided to pivot. They jumped to a new idea, and you just need to jump with them. Do not sit in the old topic waiting for more information about the boss. The boss is gone. We are talking about David now. This brings me to a very important point about the emotion of conversations. When people change the subject, their voice often changes. This is something you cannot read in a book. You have to feel it. When Sarah is complaining about her boss, her voice might be a little low, a little frustrated, a little tired. But when she says, "Anyway, enough about work. How is your sister?" her voice will lift. It will get brighter. The tension will leave her face, and you can hear the tension leave her voice. When Mark asks the sudden question about David, his voice might get more urgent or more energetic, because he just remembered something important. You need to start listening to the music of the English language, not just the words. The melody tells you when a paragraph is ending and a new one is beginning. If the emotional tone shifts from sad to happy or from serious to silly, pay close attention. A shift in emotion almost always means a shift in topic. Let us do a little practice with this. I am going to tell you a short story. I want you to listen closely to my voice and the words I choose. See if you can feel the moment the topic changes. Here we go. I was driving to the grocery store yesterday, and the traffic was unbelievable. There were cars everywhere, people honking their horns, and I sat in the same spot for 20 minutes without moving an inch. I was getting so angry, I almost turned around and went home. But, sitting there in that traffic made me realize something. I need to start waking up earlier. Did you catch it? Let us look at that story. The first part was all about traffic and anger. Cars, honking, sitting still. But then I said, but Sitting there in that traffic made me realize something. That was the bridge. I took one tiny piece of the old topic, sitting in the traffic, and I used it to jump to a completely new topic, my morning routine and waking up early. If you were listening to the emotion, you might have noticed that my voice changed from frustrated to a little more thoughtful when I said, but, you know. That is a beautiful, natural topic transition. No fancy words, just a shift in thought and a shift in tone. We are going to spend a lot of time today practicing these shifts because I really want this to become automatic for you. At the B1 level, you know enough grammar. You know enough vocabulary. The thing that holds you back is processing speed. When a topic changes suddenly, your brain spends 5 or 10 seconds trying to figure out if it missed a word. Is this still about the traffic? What does waking up early have to do with cars? By the time your brain figures out that the topic changed, the speaker is already 3 sentences into the new topic. And now you are really lost. We need to train your brain to recognize the transition immediately, so you do not waste those 5 seconds. You hear the bridge, you delete the old topic from your mind, and you focus on the new topic. It is like changing lanes on a highway. You check your mirror, you see the space, and you move. You do not stare at the old lane for 10 seconds after you have already moved. Let me introduce you to 2 more characters. Let us call them Chloe and David. They are colleagues working in a small office. They are having a conversation that is full of topic transitions. I am going to act out their conversation for you, and I will slow it down a little bit so you can hear every single bridge. As I speak, I want you to mentally raise your hand every time you hear a topic change. Ready? Here is the conversation. David says, "I cannot believe how cold it is in this office today. I am freezing. My fingers are like ice." Chloe replies, "I know. The heating system is broken again. I already called the building manager about it this morning." David says, "Good, because I cannot work like this. Oh, before I forget, did you print out the report for the meeting?" Chloe says, "Yes, it is on your desk. But speaking of the meeting, do you know if the boss is going to be there?" David says, "I think so. Actually, on a totally different note, are you going to Sandra's birthday party this weekend?" Okay, let us take that apart. That was a lot of changes for a very short conversation. Let us find the bridges together. First, they were talking about the cold office. Then Chloe mentioned calling the building manager. That was a tiny step deeper into the same topic, not a full change. Then David said, "Oh, before I forget." Boom. Bridge number 1. "Before I forget" is a classic transition phrase. It means I just remembered something totally unrelated to what we are doing right now, and I need to say it before it leaves my brain again. The new topic was the printed report. Chloe answered about the report, but then she said, "But speaking of the meeting." Boom. Bridge number 2. She took the word meeting from the report topic and used it to pivot to a question about the boss. Then David answered, and then he said, "Actually," on a totally different note. Boom. Bridge number 3. This is a very clear, very strong transition. On a totally different note means I am completely throwing away the old topic. We are not even trying to connect them anymore. The new topic is the birthday party. If you can train yourself to hear phrases like, "before I forget," and on a totally different note, you will never be caught off guard in an office environment. Now, I want us to talk about something a little more advanced. What happens when someone changes the subject because they do not want to talk about the current subject anymore? This is called a polite deflection. Sometimes people are asking you questions that you do not want to answer. Or maybe you are talking about a topic that makes someone uncomfortable. In these situations, the transition bridge is usually very fast and very smooth. People want to escape the topic without being rude. Let us imagine a different scenario. Two friends, Emily and Jason, are at a dinner party. Jason asks Emily a question about her dating life. He says, "So, are you seeing anyone special right now?" Emily feels awkward. She does not want to talk about this in front of other people. She might say, "Oh, not really, just focusing on work right now." "Hey, this food is really delicious. Did you try the chicken?" Listen to how fast that happened. She answered the question with a short, boring answer, "Not really," and then she immediately threw out a new topic: the food. The bridge here was the word hey. Hey, used in the middle of a sentence like that, is a great way to suddenly grab the listener's attention and drag them to a new topic. It is like a verbal steering wheel. She steered the conversation away from dating and crashed it right into the chicken. You will hear this happen all the time in movies, in interviews, and in real life. Politicians do it constantly. A reporter asks a hard question about money, and the politician says, "Well, the real issue here is education." The phrase "the real issue here" is a famous deflection bridge. It tells the listener, stop looking at the old topic, look at this new shiny topic instead. Even in normal friendships, people use this. If someone is talking about a sad thing, like a sick relative, and they are tired of being sad, they might take a deep breath and say, "So, what have you been up to lately?" That deep breath, followed by the word "so," is a massive signal. It means I am closing the sad chapter, and I am opening a happy chapter. Please play along with me and change the subject too. When you hear that deep breath and that "so," your job as a good listener is to follow them to the new topic and not drag them back to the sad one. I want to make sure you understand that missing a topic transition is not a failure of your English. It is a failure of the speaker to be clear, or it is just a cultural difference in how conversations flow. In some cultures, people talk in very straight lines. Topic A, then topic B, then topic C. English speakers, especially in America, Canada, and Britain, often talk in spirals. They start with topic A, which reminds them of topic B, but while talking about topic B, they remember a funny story about topic C, and then they somehow circle back to topic A. It can feel like a crazy roller coaster if you are not used to it. But once you learn to spot the bridges, the roller coaster is actually really fun. You just have to hold on and enjoy the ride instead of trying to force the ride to go in a straight line. Let us do another listening exercise. This time, I want you to close your eyes if you can, or just look away from the screen for a minute. I am going to describe a conversation between a mother and her son. The mother's name is Lisa, and the son's name is Thomas. I will play both parts. I want you to count how many times the topic changes in this short exchange. Do not worry about understanding every single word. Just relax and listen for the bridges. Here we go. Lisa says, "Thomas, did you take out the trash like I asked you to?" Thomas says, "Oh, Mom, I completely forgot. I will do it right now." Lisa says, "You always forget. You are so distracted these days." Thomas says, I am not distracted. I was just finishing my history essay. Lisa says, your history essay? That reminds me. I need to sign a permission slip for your field trip to the museum. Where did you put it? Thomas says, it is in my backpack. By the way, can I have some money for the gift shop at the museum? Lisa says, money? You already owe me money from the movies last weekend. Actually, we need to talk about your allowance. I think you are spending too much. Okay, open your eyes. How many topic changes did you count? Let us walk through it. Topic 1 was the trash. Thomas pivoted away from the trash to his history essay. His bridge was just a justification. I was just finishing my history essay. He used the essay as an excuse for forgetting the trash, effectively changing the focus of the conversation. Then Lisa used a very clear bridge. That reminds me. She took his mention of the history essay and jumped to the permission slip for the museum field trip. Then Thomas used a bridge we know well. By the way, he jumped from the permission slip to asking for money. And then Lisa used another bridge we know. Actually, she jumped from the money for the gift shop to the bigger topic of his allowance and spending habits. In just a few seconds, they went from the trash to an essay, to a permission slip, to gift shop money, to his entire allowance. 5 different topics. If you were Thomas and you were not listening for the bridges, you would think your mom was completely crazy, jumping from the trash to your allowance in 10 seconds. But because you are training with English and Fluency today, you can see the path. You can see the bridges. It is not crazy. It is just how human brains work when they talk. I want to give you a very specific tip for when you are speaking. When you want to change the topic, be a good bridge builder. Do not just jump. Help your listener out. If you are talking to an English speaker and you want to change the subject, use one of the phrases we practiced today. Say anyway, or by the way, or speaking of which. The other person will subconsciously thank you for it. It makes the conversation feel smooth and polite. If you just start talking about a new topic without a bridge, the other person might feel whiplash. They might get a confused look on their face. Have you ever seen someone give you that look? The slightly squinted eyes, the tilted head? That is the look of a person who missed the bridge. So, when you speak, build the bridge. When you listen, hunt for the bridge. This is the secret to fluent listening. Now, let us talk about silent bridges. Yes, you can change the topic without saying a single word. This is very common in casual conversations among close friends. Imagine 2 friends, Rachel and Ben, are walking down the street. Rachel is talking about a drama happening at her workplace. She is talking for 2 minutes straight. Ben is listening, but he is looking at his phone. Rachel finishes her story about the workplace drama, and there is a 3-second pause. Just silence. In that silence, Ben looks up from his phone, points across the street, and says, "Look at that huge dog." That 3-second pause was the bridge. In English conversation, a noticeable pause after someone finishes a story or a complaint is often an unspoken invitation to change the subject. The person listening does not say anything about the old topic. They just let it die in the silence, and then they bring up something new. If you are listening to someone and they finish talking, and you pause, and then you start talking about something completely different, the pause was your bridge. When you are the listener, if you hear a long pause after a story, prepare yourself. The next words out of the speaker's mouth are probably going to be a brand new topic. This happens a lot when people run out of things to say about a topic. They will start using filler words like, so, yeah, or, anyway, yeah, or just, well. If you hear someone say, well, and then they look away, they are searching their brain for a new topic. They are building the bridge in real time. Be patient with them. Give them a second. And when they finally say the new topic, do not be surprised. You knew it was coming because you heard the silent bridge of the pause and the filler words. Listening is not just about hearing sounds. It is about reading the room. It is about noticing when a topic is running out of gas. When a conversation starts to feel repetitive, or when the replies get shorter and shorter, a topic change is right around the corner. Let us try to put all of this together in one final, longer practice session. I am going to tell you a story about a man named Kevin. Kevin is at a barbecue with his neighbors. He is going to have many short conversations with different people, and every conversation is going to have topic transitions. I want you to imagine you are standing right next to Kevin. You are eavesdropping. Your only job is to follow the topic changes. Do not get lost. Grab onto the bridges. Here is the story. Kevin walks up to the grill where his neighbor Greg is cooking hamburgers. Kevin says, "Hey Greg, those burgers smell amazing. What kind of meat did you buy?" Greg says, "It is just regular ground beef, but I mixed in some garlic and onions." Kevin says, "Smart idea." "Speaking of food, did you try the potato salad that Maria brought?" Greg says, "I did. It was a little too salty for my taste." "By the way, have you seen my dog anywhere?" Kevin says, "Yeah, I saw him running around the backyard with the kids earlier." "Oh, before I forget, are we still going to play golf next Tuesday?" Greg says, "Tuesday is looking a bit busy for me, actually." On a completely different note, can you pass me that spatula? Let us stop and look at that. Kevin and Greg started with burgers. Then Kevin used the bridge, speaking of food, to jump to potato salad. Then Greg used the bridge, by the way, to jump to his dog. Then Kevin used the bridge, before I forget, to jump to golf. Then Greg dismissed golf by saying it was busy, and used the bridge on a completely different note to jump to the spatula. 4 topic changes in less than a minute. It is fast, it is chaotic, but it is completely normal English. If you can follow that, you are doing amazing. But Kevin's day at the barbecue is not over. Let us continue the story. Kevin leaves the grill and walks over to a table where his neighbor Olivia is sitting. Kevin says, "Hi, Olivia. How are you doing?" Olivia says, "I am okay, but I have a terrible headache. I think I stared at my computer screen for too long yesterday." Kevin says, "That is the worst. I get those too. Actually, that reminds me, I need to buy a new screen protector for my laptop. Do you know any good brands?" Olivia says, "Not really. I just buy the cheapest ones." Anyway, enough about computers. Did you hear that it is going to rain tomorrow? Kevin says, "Really? I hope it does not ruin our weekend plans. We were supposed to go to the beach. Well, if it rains, maybe we can just stay home and watch a movie instead." Olivia says, "A movie sounds great, but I have to warn you, I fall asleep during every movie." Kevin laughs and says, "That is fine. Hey, look at the time. I need to go pick up my kids from their friend's house." That was beautiful. Let us break down Olivia and Kevin's conversation. They started with Olivia's headache. Kevin related to it, but then used the bridge actually. That reminds me to pivot to his laptop screen protector. Olivia did not have a good answer, so she used the classic bridge anyway. Enough about computers to clearly shut down the tech topic and move to the weather. Kevin reacted to the weather and how it affects his beach plans. Then he used the bridge well to offer an alternative plan, staying home to watch a movie. Then Olivia talked about falling asleep, and Kevin laughed. Then Kevin used a situational bridge. Hey, look at the time. This is a fantastic bridge for ending a conversation entirely. When someone says, look at the time, or, wow, it is getting late, or, I should let you go, they are transitioning out of the conversation itself. They are building a bridge to the exit. If you hear those phrases, you know the interaction is about to end. It is a very polite and very common way to leave a chat at a party. Can you see how much fun this is? When you know the secrets of topic transitions, conversations stop feeling like confusing tests and start feeling like games. You can sit back and watch the bridges appear. You can predict when someone is going to change the subject before they even finish their sentence. You become an active listener instead of a passive listener. A passive listener just hears words and hopes they make sense. An active listener hunts for structure. An active listener listens for the anyway, the by the way, the speaking of which, the sudden questions, the pauses, and the shifts in voice tone. You have the power now. You have the map to the conversation. I want to talk about a type of transition that can be very confusing if you do not know what is happening. I call this the callback. A callback is when a speaker completely drops a topic, talks about something else for a few minutes, and then suddenly brings back the very first topic, as if no time has passed at all. This happens a lot when people are excited, or when they have a lot of things on their mind. Imagine two friends, Sophie and Ryan. They are sitting on a park bench. Sophie says, I really need to buy a new winter coat. Ryan says, yeah, it is getting cold. Then Sophie says, oh, look at that dog over there. It is so cute. They spend 2 minutes talking about the dog, laughing at the dog, and watching the dog run. Then, out of nowhere, Ryan says, so anyway, where were you thinking of buying that coat? Do you see what just happened? Ryan performed a callback. He reached all the way back across the 2-minute gap about the dog, grabbed the coat topic, and put it right back on the table. If you were Sophie, you might feel a little whiplash. You were thinking about a cute dog, and suddenly you are shopping for coats again. But for a native speaker, this feels perfectly normal. The phrase, so anyway, is the clue. When you hear so anyway at the start of a sentence after a long detour, it usually means the speaker is trying to get back to the original plan. They are calling back to the main point. Your brain needs to be flexible enough to reach into its memory and pull out that old topic. Do not discard topics completely when they change, because in English, old topics often come back to life. Callbacks are actually a really beautiful part of spoken English. They show that the person was actually listening to you earlier, even if they got distracted. If Ryan had forgotten about the coat, he would have just started a new topic. But because he remembered, it makes Sophie feel heard. When you are listening to English, try to enjoy these callbacks. Do not get frustrated and think, why are we talking about coats again? Just smile and admire how the speaker connected the dots. Another way speakers do this is by saying, getting back to what we were saying, or to return to our earlier point. Those are very clear callbacks, mostly used in business or slightly more serious conversations. But in casual chats, so anyway, is the king of the callback. Now, let us talk about a much more aggressive type of topic transition. I call this the excited interruption. Sometimes people do not wait for a bridge. They do not wait for a pause. They just jump right into a new topic because their brain is moving too fast for their mouth. This is very common among close friends and family members. Let us imagine a brother and sister, Maya and Arthur. They are cleaning the kitchen together. Maya is complaining about how messy the kitchen is. She is saying, "I cannot believe how many dishes are in the sink. You really need to clean up after yourself." And before she even finishes her sentence, Arthur drops a plate. His eyes go wide, and he says, "Oh my God, I just remembered. I got the job. I got the job." Listen to that energy. Arthur did not say, "Excuse me," and he did not say, "By the way." He just blasted the new topic into the room. The transition here was not a word. The transition was the sudden high energy, the change in volume, and the phrase, "Oh my God." When you hear a sudden spike in excitement, especially combined with words like, "Oh my God," or "Guess what?" or "You will not believe this," you need to instantly drop whatever topic is currently happening. The old topic is dead. A bomb of exciting news just exploded, and the conversation is now entirely about the news. If you keep thinking about the dirty dishes, you are going to miss the most important part of the conversation. Excited interruptions are like emergency sirens. When you hear them, pull your brain over to the side of the road and pay total attention to the new subject. It is also very common for people to interrupt with a completely random thought. Have you ever been talking to someone, and they suddenly stop, look at the wall, and say, "I just remembered I need to buy milk"? That is a random thought interruption. The phrase "I just remembered" is your bridge. It means whatever we were just talking about is paused, maybe forever, because my brain just sent me a priority message about milk. As a listener, you just have to laugh and accept it. You can say, "Okay, we will talk about this later," or you can just nod and let them write down their milk note. The important thing is that you do not feel confused. You did not miss anything. The other person's brain just shifted gears without using a turn signal. It is a little rude sometimes, but it is incredibly common in informal English. Let us move on to another bridge that you will hear every single day. I call it the storytelling bridge. English speakers love to relate everything to their own personal experiences. If you tell them a problem you are having, they will often change the subject from your problem to a story about a similar problem they had. Let me give you an example. Imagine you are talking to a coworker named Ben. You say, "I am having such a hard time learning how to drive. I failed my test again." Ben could just say, "That is too bad. Good luck next time." But instead, Ben says, "Oh man, that is exactly what happened to me when I was 18. I failed my test 3 times because I could not parallel park. Let me tell you about the 3rd time. Do you hear what Ben just did? He took the topic of your driving test, and he smoothly transitioned the focus onto himself and his own past. The bridge was the phrase that is exactly what happened to me. When you hear phrases like that, reminds me of when or I had the exact same thing happen, or that is just like the time you need to prepare yourself for a storytelling bridge. The topic is no longer about your present problem. The topic has traveled back in time to the speaker's memory. You are now a passenger on their storytelling train. Just sit back, listen to the story, and enjoy the ride. Do not try to bring the conversation back to your driving test until Ben finishes his story. In English culture, sharing these personal stories is a way of showing empathy. Ben is not being selfish by changing the subject. He is trying to show you that he understands your pain by sharing his own pain. These storytelling bridges can go on for a long time. The speaker might tell a 5-minute story, and by the end of it, the original topic is completely forgotten. That is perfectly fine. It is just the natural flow of human connection. Sometimes the story bridges are even smaller. You might say, "I am so tired today." And your friend might say, "Tell me about it. I only slept for 3 hours last night." The topic shifted slightly from your tiredness to their specific reason for being tired. "Tell me about it" is a great little phrase here. It does not actually mean "tell me about it." It means "I agree with you completely, and here is my proof." It is a tiny bridge that keeps the conversation moving forward without getting stuck. Now I want to talk about something that happens a lot in group conversations. When there are 3, 4, or 5 people talking, topic transitions happen much faster, and they are much harder to follow. In a group, anyone can build a bridge at any time. Let us imagine 3 friends sitting around a table. Their names are Tom, Bella, and Chris. Tom says, "I went to that new Italian restaurant last night." Bella says, "Oh, nice. How was the pasta?" Tom says, "It was amazing, but the service was really slow." Now, a normal 2-person conversation would continue about the slow service. But because Chris is there, Chris might jump in and say, "Slow service is the worst." That reminds me of when we went to that pizza place and waited an hour. Bella might hear the word pizza and completely ignore the service topic, saying, "Oh, I love pizza. We should get pizza for lunch today." And Tom might hear lunch today and say, "Wait, what time is it? I have a meeting at 1 o'clock. Do you see how chaotic that is?" Tom started with a restaurant review. Bella asked about pasta. Chris brought up bad service at a pizza place. Bella changed it to getting pizza for lunch. And Tom changed it to his schedule. 5 different micro-topics in just a few seconds. If you are an English learner standing in that group, you probably feel like a tennis ball being hit back and forth over a net. But if you listen for the bridges, it makes sense. Chris used "that reminds me" to bring up his memory. Bella used the word pizza to pivot to lunch. Tom used the time constraint to pivot to his meeting. In a group, you do not have to follow every single detail. You just have to hold on to the last thing that was said. Let the topics flow over you like water. Do not try to freeze the water. Just swim with it. One of the hardest parts about group transitions is knowing when it is your turn to speak, or when a topic has been officially closed by the group. Have you ever tried to add a comment to a topic, but the group has already moved on? You say something, and everyone looks at you strangely, and someone says, "Yeah, we were just talking about that." It is embarrassing, but it happens because you missed the transition signal. How do you know when a topic is dead in a group? Usually, there is a collective pause. 2 or 3 people stop talking at the same time. Someone looks at their phone. Someone takes a sip of their drink. That collective pause is the graveyard of the old topic. When you feel that pause, do not try to revive the old topic. Let it go. Wait for someone to start a new bridge. If no one does, you can be the hero of the group and build the bridge yourself. You can say, "So, what is everyone doing this weekend?" You just saved the conversation. You became the bridge builder. Let us take a moment to talk about how you can use these transitions to help your own speaking. When you are talking to a native English speaker, do not be afraid to use the exact phrases we are learning today. If you want to tell a story, say, "You know, that reminds me of something that happened to me." If you get bored with the topic, say, "Anyway, enough about that." If you remember something important, say, "Oh, before I forget." Native speakers will not judge you for using these phrases. In fact, they will be impressed. It makes you sound incredibly natural. It makes your English sound smooth instead of choppy. Choppy English is when you just say random sentences that have no connection. Smooth English is when you build bridges between your ideas. Even if your grammar is not perfect, if your transitions are smooth, people will think you are very fluent. Fluency is not about perfect grammar. Fluency is about easy flow, and bridges create the flow. Let us do a really good listening exercise now to test everything we have talked about. I am going to tell you a story about a woman named Jessica, who is having a very busy morning at her office. She talks to two different people, and there are a lot of advanced transitions. I want you to close your eyes again, relax your shoulders, and just listen to the flow of the conversation. Do not stress about the words. Just hunt for the bridges. Here we go. Jessica walks into the office holding a large cup of coffee. She sits down at her desk and sighs. Her coworker, Liam, walks past her desk and says, "Rough morning," Jessica says. "You have no idea. I spilled coffee all over my shirt this morning and had to change my whole outfit." Liam laughs and says, "That is terrible. Oh, speaking of shirts, I need to buy a new one for the wedding I am going to next week." Jessica says, "A wedding? I love weddings." Actually, getting back to what we were talking about earlier, did you finish that report for the boss? Liam looks confused for a second, then says, "Oh, right, the report. No, I haven't. But guess what? I just got an email from HR, and we are getting a bonus this month." Jessica gasps and says, "Are you serious? That is amazing." Wait, to change the subject completely, do you hear that strange noise coming from the air vent? Liam stops smiling and listens. Yeah, it sounds like a squeaking mouse. That reminds me, I need to call the exterminator about the ants in my kitchen. Okay, open your eyes. That was a lot to process. Let us break it down step by step so you can see the invisible architecture of that conversation. They started with Jessica's bad morning and the spilled coffee. Liam sympathized, but then he used a classic bridge. Oh, speaking of shirts. He took one word from her story and used it to jump to his need for a new shirt. Jessica heard the word wedding and got excited. She said, "A wedding? I love weddings." But then she caught herself. She realized she was supposed to be talking about work. So what did she do? She used a beautiful, polite callback. She said, "Actually, getting back to what we were talking about earlier." This is a fantastic phrase to use when you realize you have been distracted and you want to return to the main point. She pulled the conversation back to the report. Liam answered about the report, but then he used an excited interruption. But guess what? That phrase is a massive alert. It means exciting news is coming. The topic violently shifted to the bonus. Jessica reacted with excitement, but then she used a very abrupt transition. Wait, to change the subject completely. This is a funny, slightly dramatic way to change the topic. She heard a noise, and she wanted to talk about the noise. Finally, Liam talked about the mouse noise, and he used the storytelling bridge. That reminds me, he used the idea of a pest in the office to jump to the ants in his kitchen. In just 1 minute of speaking, they used 6 different types of bridges. If you understood that, you are not at a B1 level anymore. You are moving up to B2. You should be incredibly proud of yourself. I want to tell you a quick personal story. When I was first learning a second language, I used to get so angry at native speakers. I thought they were disorganized and rude because they never stayed on one topic. I would be trying to practice my vocabulary about sports, and the person would suddenly start talking about their grandmother's cat. I thought I was failing. I thought they were changing the subject because I was boring. But the truth was, they were just being normal humans. Their brains were making associations. The cat reminded them of a sports game on television, or something like that. Once I learned about topic transitions, everything changed. I stopped feeling angry, and I started feeling curious. I started trying to guess where the bridge would go. I would be talking to someone, and I would think to myself, okay, what is she going to say next? Is she going to use anyway? Is she going to interrupt me? It turned listening from a stressful test into a fun game. I want you to have that same feeling. I want you to smile the next time someone says, by the way, because you will know exactly what is happening. You are in on the secret now. Let us do one more quick practice, and then we will move to the final, most invisible type of transition. I am going to give you a few sentences, and I want you to mentally shout out the type of bridge I am using. You do not have to speak, just think the answer. Ready? Number 1. I was walking down the street, and I saw a huge crash. Oh, before I forget, I need to pay my electricity bill today. What is the bridge? Yes, it is the before I forget bridge. A random thought popping into the brain. Number 2. We had a great time at the beach. The weather was perfect. Well, I suppose I should let you go. It is getting late. What is the bridge? Yes, it is the exit bridge. Well, I suppose I should let you go is a polite way to end the whole conversation. Number 3. He is always late to work. It is so annoying. Anyway, enough complaining. Did you see the news today? What is the bridge? Yes, it is the direct close. Anyway, enough complaining clearly shuts down the negative topic to start a new one. Number 4. I am reading a really good book about space. Speaking of space, have you ever looked through a telescope? What is the bridge? Yes, it is the speaking of bridge, connecting the old topic to a new question. You are getting so good at this. It is becoming second nature to you. Now, I want to give you the last missing piece of the puzzle. I want to talk about the most subtle, the most invisible, and honestly, the most powerful type of topic transition in the English language. If you can master hearing this, you will not just understand conversations, you will feel them. You will know what the speaker is going to say before they even open their mouth. Let us talk about the soft pivot and the environmental trigger. Most of the bridges we have talked about so far are verbal. Someone says a specific phrase like anyway, or by the way, and you know the topic is changing. But native speakers are incredibly lazy with their words sometimes. They do not always want to announce that they are changing the subject. Sometimes they want to change the subject so smoothly that you do not even notice it happening until you are already talking about the new thing. They do this using a soft pivot. A soft pivot is when a speaker uses a tiny word of agreement to acknowledge what you just said, and then immediately steers the conversation in a different direction. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine two friends, Zoe and Nathan. Zoe is complaining about her neighbor playing loud music. She goes on and on about how annoying it is. Nathan does not really want to talk about the neighbor. He thinks Zoe complains too much, but he does not want to be rude. So he uses a soft pivot. He says, "Yeah, it is really annoying. Hey, I was wondering if you are free to help me move my sofa this weekend. Do you hear the magic in that sentence?" The magic was the word, yeah. Yeah was the fake bridge. Nathan used yeah to pretend he was still talking about the loud music. But the word hey was the real steering wheel. He agreed with her just enough to make her feel heard, and then he instantly drove the conversation to his sofa. When you are listening to someone, if you hear a quick agreement like right, sure, yeah, true, or exactly, followed immediately by a completely new question or statement, you are experiencing a soft pivot. The speaker is politely escaping your topic. As a listener, you just have to let them go. Do not keep talking about the loud music, because Nathan has already left that building. Soft pivots are everywhere in English. They are the secret weapon of polite society. If someone tells you a boring story about their computer breaking, you cannot just walk away. You have to use a soft pivot. You say, "Oh no, that is the worst. Anyway, I have to run to the bank before it closes." The phrase, "Oh no, that is the worst," is just a polite cushion. It softens the blow of you changing the subject. When you are listening to native speakers, train your brain to ignore the cushion. The cushion is not the topic. The sentence that comes immediately after the cushion is the real topic. If you focus on the cushion, you will think you are still talking about the broken computer. You have to look past the cushion to see the new direction. This takes practice, because your brain naturally wants to follow the emotion of the cushion. But if you remember this trick, you will never be fooled again. Now, let us move to the environmental trigger. This is one of my favorite types of transition, because it reminds us that human conversation does not happen in a vacuum. It happens in the real world, with cars driving by, with phones ringing, and with other people walking into the room. An environmental trigger is when something in the physical environment forces the topic to change. The speaker is not deciding to change the topic. The world is deciding for them. Imagine two colleagues, Leo and Mia, are sitting in a busy coffee shop. Leo is explaining a very complicated math problem. He is very focused. He is using his hands to explain the numbers. Suddenly, the door opens. A cold wind blows in, and Mia shivers. Leo stops talking. Mia looks at the door and says, "Oh, wow, it is really starting to snow outside." Just like that, the math problem is dead. The environmental trigger was the cold wind and the snow. Mia did not use a transition phrase. She just reacted to the environment. If you were Leo and you were staring at your notebook, you might feel confused. Why did she stop talking about math? But if you are a trained listener, you know that a sudden reaction to the physical world is a massive topic changer. If someone says, "Oh, wow," or "Look at that," or "Do you hear that?" your brain needs to immediately switch from the current topic to the physical environment. The conversation is now about the snow, or the loud siren, or the dog that just ran past. You cannot fight an environmental trigger. You just have to ride the wave. These environmental triggers are actually a great tool for you when you are speaking English. If you are ever stuck in a conversation and you do not know what to say, just look out a window. Find something to talk about. Say, "Oh, look at that bird." It is a perfect, natural way to change the subject without being rude. But when you are listening, you have to be careful. Sometimes native speakers fake environmental triggers because they want to use a soft pivot. Have you ever been talking to someone, and they suddenly look at their phone, gasp softly, and say, "Oh, sorry, I just got a text." Sometimes the text is real, but sometimes they just wanted an excuse to stop talking about the current topic. It is a brilliant strategy. As a listener, you cannot tell the difference between a fake gasp and a real gasp, and you do not need to. The result is exactly the same. The topic has changed. The phone is now the new focus of the conversation. Just smile, ask them what the text says, and move on. Let us put the soft pivot and the environmental trigger together in a final, massive practice session. I am going to tell you a story about three friends who are at a community center putting up decorations for a party. Their names are Hazel, Felix, and Sam. This conversation is going to move fast. I want you to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just let the words wash over you. Do not try to translate anything. Just listen for the cushions, the environmental triggers, and the sudden changes in direction. Here we go. Hazel is standing on a ladder, trying to hang a banner. She says, "This ladder is so wobbly. I feel like I am going to fall." Felix is holding the bottom of the ladder. He says, "Yeah, it is pretty old." Actually, to change the subject completely, did you hear about the new gym that opened down the street? Sam is across the room blowing up balloons. Sam says, "I did hear about it, but I do not have time to go to the gym." "True, I am too busy with work anyway." "Oh, look at that. The balloon just popped." Hazel laughs from the ladder and says, "That was loud." "Speaking of loud noises, my brother is starting a band." Felix says, "Oh, really? What kind of music do they play?" Sam suddenly looks at the door and says, "Hey, is that the pizza delivery guy?" Felix turns around and says, "I hope so. I am starving." By the way, before we eat, we need to figure out who is paying for all this. Hazel climbs down the ladder and says, "Well, I paid for the balloons, so I should not have to pay for the pizza. Anyway, enough about money. Let's just eat." Sam opens the pizza box and says, "Wow, this smells amazing. You know, that reminds me of the best pizza I ever had in Italy." Felix groans and says, "Oh no, here comes the Italy story. Okay, open your eyes. Let us take that apart piece by piece because it was packed with transitions." Hazel started with the wobbly ladder. Felix used a direct, slightly awkward transition, actually, to change the subject completely, to jump to the gym. Then Sam answered about the gym, but used a soft pivot. He said, "True, I am too busy with work anyway." The word "true" was the cushion. He agreed with Felix, but he used it to dismiss the gym topic and shift to his own busy schedule. Then we had an environmental trigger. A balloon popped. Sam said, "Oh, look at that." The environment forced the topic to change to the balloon. Then Hazel used a callback to the loud noise, saying, "Speaking of loud noises," to bring up her brother's band. Felix asked about the band, but then Sam used another environmental trigger. He saw someone at the door. "Hey, is that the pizza delivery guy?" The physical environment completely derailed the band topic. Felix followed the environment, talking about being hungry, but then he used a classic phrase, by the way, to shift to the serious topic of money. Hazel answered about the money, but then used the ultimate shutdown phrase, "Anyway, enough about money," to end the money talk. Then Sam used a storytelling bridge. You know, that reminds me, to start talking about Italy. And finally, Felix used a sarcastic joke. "Oh no, here comes the Italy story," which is actually a hilarious way of acknowledging that the topic has changed while simultaneously complaining about it. It was a masterpiece of English conversation. If you understood that, if you followed the ladder, the gym, the balloon, the band, the pizza, the money, and the Italy story, you are absolutely crushing it. You are proving that you do not need to know every word in the dictionary to understand what is going on. You just need to know the structure. You just need to know the bridges. And now you do. You know the direct phrases, the callbacks, the excited interruptions, the soft pivots, and the environmental triggers. You have a complete toolkit for understanding real English. I want to take a few minutes to talk to you about what to do when you still get lost. Because let us be honest, it is going to happen. Even native speakers get lost in conversations sometimes. People talk too fast. People mumble. Rooms are noisy. You are human. When you miss a transition and you suddenly realize you have no idea what the people around you are talking about, do not panic. Panic is your worst enemy. When you panic, your brain freezes. You stop listening because you are too busy feeling bad about not understanding. I want you to banish that feeling. Missing a topic is not a failure. It is just a tiny bump in the road. So, what is the secret to recovering from a missed topic? It is incredibly simple. You just ask. You do not have to say, "Excuse me, I am a B1 English learner, and I did not understand your transition." You can just use very natural, casual phrases to get back on track. If you are talking to a friend, you can just say, "Wait, I lost you. What are we talking about now?" Or you can say, "Sorry, my brain jumped somewhere else. How did we get to this topic?" People love these phrases because they are honest and funny. Everyone knows what it feels like to zone out for a second. You can also just make a guess based on the last word you heard. If they were talking about the weather and suddenly they are talking about planes, you can say, "Wait, are we talking about flying somewhere?" Even if you are wrong, the person will happily explain the bridge to you. They will say, "Oh no, I just remembered I have to book a flight." And boom, you are back in the conversation. There is no shame in asking for the bridge to be rebuilt. It is the most natural thing in the world. Another great trick is to just nod and wait. Sometimes the topic changes, and you have absolutely no idea why, but if you just keep nodding and listening, the context will usually reveal itself within 30 seconds. People give clues. If they suddenly start talking about pizza, you do not need to know how they got there. You just need to know they are talking about pizza now. You can join in by saying, "I love pizza," or "Man, now I am hungry." You do not have to understand the transition to participate in the new topic. Just let the old topic go. Let it float away like a balloon. Focus your energy on the new topic in front of you. The more you relax about missing things, the better your overall listening will become. Relaxation opens up your ears. Tension closes them. As we wrap up this masterclass on English in Fluency, I want you to think about how far you have come. When we started, you felt lost when people changed the subject. You thought native speakers were chaotic and confusing. But now, you know the truth. You know that English conversations are highly structured. They are full of invisible rules and signals. You know that anyway means the door is closing. You know that by the way means a random thought has arrived. You know that speaking of which means someone found a connection. You know that a sudden question means a pivot. You know that a pause means the topic is running out of gas. You know that a soft pivot uses a cushion of agreement to escape. You know that the physical world can change a topic in a second. You are no longer a passive victim of conversations. You are an active participant. You are a linguistic detective looking for clues, finding the bridges, and following the path. I want to challenge you one last time. I want you to go out into the real world this week and use a transition phrase yourself. Do not just listen for them. Build one. The next time you are talking to someone in English and the conversation gets boring, or you remember something important, I want you to take a deep breath and say, "Anyway, enough about that," and then say your new topic. Or I want you to say, "Oh, by the way, I wanted to ask you something. I promise you, it will feel amazing. It will feel like a superpower. You will realize that you are not just studying English anymore. You are actually speaking it. You are using the tools of a native speaker. And once you start using them, hearing them will become 100 times easier." Speaking and listening are connected. The better you get at building bridges, the easier it is to spot them when other people build them. Thank you so much for spending your time with me on English in Fluency. I am Alex, and making these lessons for you is the absolute highlight of my day. I know learning a language is hard. I know there are days when you want to quit. But you did not quit today. You showed up, you listened, and you leveled up. If this masterclass on topic transitions helped you, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a lesson. Leave a comment below and tell me which type of bridge is your favorite, or share a story about a time you got lost in a conversation. I read every single comment, and I love hearing from you. Share this video with a friend who is learning English too, because sharing is caring. Keep practicing those bridges, keep your ears open, and keep believing in yourself. I will see you in the next video. Take care.